blood, it was eating his blood. Thinking about how every night while he was sweating and working in the factory until morning, his wife was sleeping in the arms of a stranger was driving him crazy. But could it be possible? He trusted Shervan as much as his own eyes. But he also knew well the person who had brought him the news about his wife and knew that he didn't speak nonsense or make things up, especially when it came to honor and reputation. Even though he was on the verge of madness, he knew he couldn't believe it until he saw it with his own eyes. That's why, just like every night, he left the house at the exact time he would head to the factory. But instead of going to the factory, he hid behind a tree and waited to see if the rumors he had heard about his wife were true or not. Hello friends, welcome to the Confession Channel. You are watching and listening to another case from our series of videos. The case of the gruesome murder of Shervan and her husband's cousin during a sexual encounter. If you are interested in this type of content, we would be happy if you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell next to it so you don't miss new videos. The case of this horrific crime was opened in the final hours of May 9th, 2023, where the sound of 4 gunshots brought all the residents of the neighborhood in front of the house of Shervan, a 24-year-old woman. It was around 11 at night when first the sound of gunshots and then the screams and shouts turned that house into a scene of chaos. The half-alive and bloodied body of the boy lay in the middle of the yard, pleading for his life. Those who stood indifferently over him, witnessing his dying moments, were not strangers. They knew him well. Many people in the small town of Safaieh, a suburb of Khoi, are relatives and cousins. The one lying on the ground in the yard, dying, was the cousin of those standing over him, witnessing his death. In fact, they had set a trap for him and caught him at the right moment to bring this calamity upon him. After all, he had crossed the red lines and had an affair with his cousin's wife, and he was caught exactly when he was lying naked next to a married woman. To better understand this crime and learn its details, we need to go back a few years and start the story from when Shervan got married at the age of 19. Marrying relatives is a common and customary practice in that traditional and closed society, and it was natural for Shervan to marry in the same way. The one who wanted Shervan was the same guy who 5 years later was found naked in Shervan's yard and died. He, who was Shervan's cousin, sent his mother to propose, but Shervan's father, because he sent a proposal, but Shervan's father, due to property disputes with his brother, was not at all agreeable to the marriage and gave his daughter to the son of another brother. Shervan at 19 sat at the wedding table with one of his cousins, while everyone knew he wanted someone else. Because of this, he couldn't start a good and healthy life. Her husband was not a bad or troublesome person, but the thought that his wife wanted someone else always bothered him, and they often argued. 3 years into their marriage, their arguments escalated significantly, and Shervan left her husband's house and returned to her father's home. She and her husband had already made arrangements for a divorce, with the plan being that Shervan would forgo her dowry and her husband would grant her the divorce. However, Shervan's father and her father-in-law did not allow the divorce to proceed. 2 weeks after the day she had left in anger to her father's house, Shervan was forced to return to her husband's home. On the surface, everything seemed normal, and Shervan appeared to be the same person as before. However, during the time Shervan was at her father's house, she was once again struck by the thought of her former love. Despite still being married, she pursued this forbidden love, and the romantic affair with her old flame led to a horrific ending for her. Under the pressure from her father and father-in-law, she returned to her husband's home. However, she had already rekindled her relationship with her former love, and on the nights when her husband worked night shifts at the factory, she would bring her old flame into the house to continue their affair. The revelation of this secret relationship in that small town where everyone knows each other was neither surprising nor complicated. One of the neighbors was the first to see the old flame sneaking into Shervan's house at night, and they relayed the story to Shervan's husband through his brothers-in-law. The brothers-in-law wanted to confront the same young man who had an affair with their brother's wife and do something about it. That guy. But the husband says he can't believe it until he sees it with his own eyes. That guy. But the husband says he can't believe it until he sees it with his own eyes. That's why every night at the time he would usually leave for the factory, he left the house. But instead of heading to the factory, He hid near the house and kept watch to see if the rumors he heard about his wife were true or not. These stakeouts were fruitless for the first 2 nights, and there was no sign of his wife's lover. He had taken a week off from the factory to get to the bottom of this matter, and on the 3rd night, he saw what he had been waiting for. At around 10:30 at night, his cousin, the one everyone knew was Shervan's former love, came in front of his house, took out his phone, made a call, and the sound of the door buzzer was heard. The door opened and he went inside. The husband had reached the brink of madness and wanted to go in and settle the matter immediately, but he waited again until he could enter, at a point where they would have no room for denial or excuses. Around 11 o'clock at night, he inserts the key and goes inside, holding a loaded handgun in his hand. As soon as he enters the house, he is confronted with the darkest and most bitter scene of his life. Shervan's wife, whom he trusted like his own eyes, is seen in the arms of the same cousin who once proposed to Shervan. Everything really happens in less than a few seconds. The cousin intends to flee, but Shervan's husband starts shooting. 4 bullets are fired, but the husband can't hit his wife and, only hits the cousin. The wife's former suitor, despite being shot, tries to escape but is caught by Shervan's brothers-in-law at the door and brought back in the yard. They drag Shervan into the middle of the yard to kill both of them together and end this dishonor. It was truly an apocalyptic scene in the yard of the house. The cousin, shot and bloody, was lying in the middle of the yard. Shervan, with disheveled hair and appearance. Even though he might have known what fate awaited him, he was begging for his life with tears and cries. Everyone was waiting for Shervan's husband to fire the next bullets into Shervan's body, but he either couldn't do it or refrain from committing a second murder out of fear of punishment. They contacted Shervan's father, and minutes later Shervan's father, ashamed and devastated, entered the scene, where, as they said, he had to commit a crime to defend his honor and dignity. Shervan's father neither showed any mercy to his errant daughter nor made any effort to save her. In front of everyone, he began to beat Shervan and finally wrapped her scarf around her neck, squeezing it until his daughter's breath stopped and she was gone. 2 bodies were lying in the middle of the house's yard. One was strangled and the other was shot. Both murderers, Shervan's husband and father, were arrested, but the families of both victims gave unconditional consent regarding the murder. Shervan's father was released and her husband only received a 6-month sentence and was released. Thank you for staying with us until this moment. Please share your comments with us at the bottom of this page. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, support us in our activities by subscribing.